The 87th Texas legislature passed House Bill 2497, which established the 1836 Project, an advisory committee to promote patriotic education and increase awareness of the Texas values. On the committee is our own Dr. Don Frazier, who joins me tonight via Zoom. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Great to be here, and I'm always happy to talk Texas with you guys.
Absolutely. So why is this committee needed?
Well, Texas is going to double its population in the next, say, 20, 30 years. Everybody seems to be moving to Texas right now. Internally within the United States, they're coming from California, they're coming from Florida, they're coming from New York, from outside of the country, they're coming from Latin America, they're also coming from South Asia. So there's a lot of newcomers coming to Texas. And there's also a bunch of native Texans that just could use a refresher course on what makes Texas, frankly, Texas. There's a reason everybody's coming here, and we need to kind of get on the same sheet of music, if you will. And so we decided, well, perhaps we should build something that every one of these natives and newcomers alike get as a gift from the state of Texas, from the taxpayers of Texas. And they'll all receive about 30-page booklet whenever they get their driver's license, whether a 16-year-old that was born in San Antonio or a 60-year-old that was born in Portland, Oregon. Whenever they come in and intersect with the driver's license office, that's when they'll get one of these booklets.
Now, the year 1836, of course, is important, and for those who know their Texas history, that was the year that Texas became a state as part of the U.S. So that's probably there's probably a reason why it wasn't called the 1845 Project, right?
You bet. And so it's, if you follow the chain of ownership here, the 1836 Project, Texas 1836 Committee is kind of modeled a bit on the 1776 committee that was done during the Trump administration, which was a response to the 1619 Project, which was done by the New York Times and others, mostly sociologists. And so when this first idea, the idea first came to my attention, I went to the lawmaker, actually Tan Parker of Flower Mound there in the Metroplex, who essentially wrote the bill and said, what are you trying to achieve here? Being director of the Texas Center, I figured I ought to know stuff like that. And he said, well, we're going to essentially try to get everybody the story of Texas. I said, great. You know, Texas didn't start in 1836, though. I mean, it goes back to the day 8 of Genesis. And so, I mean, if you want bipartisan support, you probably ought to bring in some of the other great cultural ingredients that make that Texas mix so special. And so 1836 is when Texas declares and wins its independence, but it's not when it becomes part of the United States, and it's certainly not its founding year. So it's the date that everybody keys in on because it's unique to Texas history.
It is definitely unique, the fact that we were our own state at one point. I say we produce our show in Texas. So how will your work, because you talk about Texans coming in or future Texans coming in, getting the information, learning about our history, but how will your work influence the rest of the nation?
Well, I would argue that Texas is one of the best expressions of the American ideal. I would tell people that all those guys in the powdered wigs sitting around Philadelphia thinking lofty political thoughts actually had Texas in mind. They just hadn't met the place yet. So they were proto-Texans. And I think in Texas that we do a lot of what the original intent was of this country. It's essentially, in my opinion, the Constitution is the scaffolding that allows for free enterprise, that creates a rule book that levels the playing field and lets everybody pursue their happiness. And I think Texas is still pretty intent on those original intentions.
Now, Texas is not getting smaller. You pointed out, someone moving from Oregon or California or Oklahoma or wherever. Do you see a shift in Texas values as others move in the state? There's debate that takes place that Texas may not be red anymore, may be more purple. What's your view on that?
I would say Texas has always been pretty purple. It's red right now because the blue team has gone so far away from the center that there's not a whole lot of people that can really latch into it. What I am finding from the people that I talk to, especially immigrants from California, is they're entrepreneurial, they're bringing lots of cash, and they're political refugees. They're leaving California because they can't find a place for themselves in California anymore. They cite things like faith and freedom and family values in Texas as things that have brought them here. So I get that. And those are some things that in Texas we leave you alone about. If you want to go to a mosque, if you want to go to a fire temple, if you want to go to the Second Baptist Church, it's all good by us. We're not going to think any less of you by whichever choice you make. But apparently in some parts of this country, that's a major concern, and especially in some industries in this country. A bunch of these high-tech guys are talking about, as people of faith, they're finding it to be pretty difficult in that industry out in Silicon Valley. So they're moving to Austin to try to recreate Silicon Valley here in the state of Texas. So, yeah, there's some, from the outsiders, they're all bringing in this idea of what traditional Texas values are. The biggest shifts have been in inner city Texas, places like Houston and Dallas and San Antonio. Those are the places where they need to be reminded what the great story is that they're reading into, as much as the newcomers that have never heard the story before in their life.
Got about 30 seconds left. What's new on the horizon for the committee? Any big plans that we're going to hear about maybe this fall?
Sure. You're going to have a booklet that will be passed out at the driver's license office, as I mentioned. We'll have a longer form report that'll be, over 100 pages anyway. And there will be some interfacing with the TEA, the Texas Education Agency, where this story of Texas will become enhanced and help build out the Texas educational landscape as well.
There you go, Dr. Frazier. Good information. We're going to continue to have you back and update us on that. Stick around. This is Create, Build, and Manage Daily.